Hello, my friends. This is Andy over at Falco Canine Academy, and I hope my mic's working this time. Sorry about that. I'm using a brand new bit of software that I am not completely comfortable with yet. So I apologize. I I went through a whole bunch of stuff earlier, and now I got to try to remember what I was talking about the first time. But what we're talking about today is the human dog transformation system that we are introducing to some new trainers that are in our new training group. We're going to be creating a bunch of new trainers that are going to be taught this new system, which is based on science and based on how human beings relate to dogs and what it is they need to know about dogs. And it sounds kind of complicated especially when you add science to the name, but it's not. It actually is going to make things way easier for trainers to evaluate issues with dogs and their human beings and how to fix them. And it'll be a very easy, simple process, but the training of it is going to take a little bit to make sure and get people on the same page. The other thing is there's going to be many trainers who watch and learn and hear of what we're doing. They're saying, you know what, I've been training dogs for 15 years. I already know everything there is to know about dogs, or I know enough. It's been serving me well. I have some success. But I'm here to tell you that the information that we have in this training, as soon as we get to the next phase of the online program, which is putting it together some of the videos that Aldo Secchi is going to be teaching on, you're going to see that you're going, oh man, I can't believe that I didn't make that connection between that thing. There's so many things I've talked about before that I know when I see this, that if I do this other thing, that it will fix this thing. And ask me how I know that. I don't know. There's just sometimes a feeling that I have, or there's something that I experienced in my past that I know if I do that, it always fixes the problem. But the reasons behind it are not always very clear to me. The reason why certain things work, sometimes I'm going, God, I don't know why it works, but it just works. But understanding the science behind it is going to be so much clarification that many of us in the dog training world have been kind of just doing because it kind of works. And then we'll begin to make less mistakes because now we're going to have a system that's going to say, you know, normally we would have done this, but because of what I know now, I'm going to come back around and do this instead. And it's going to give you more tools in your toolbox that'll be more effective. So the reason I talk about how in the title it has to do with because a dog is a strong personality, or because a dog has a biting issue, or because a dog maybe even is aggressive, that there's many trainers who decide to go with a pinch collar or electronic collar or something like that, which of course we've been talking about for years that's not always the solution. As a matter of fact, those things can quite often make your problem worse, and that sometimes falls on deaf ears, even to some people that we've trained in the past. Some of my old trainers who've gone on and started their own business, I see they quickly evolve from understanding that you don't always have to go to a pinch collar to let's just go to the pinch collar, because you know what? The pinch collar is a lot easier. Sometimes it has to do with a little bit of laziness or impatience, and so it may not be outright laziness, right? It's just that they know that if we just put the pinch collar on, it kind of solves some of our problems, right? And we'll do it that way. Or the electronic collar. You know, we're just going to put the electronic collar on because it causes the dog to hold in some of that negative energy and keeps them from acting out, right? And they go, well, that's good enough, right? That the dog's not doing it, that's good enough. But no, is that really good for the dog? Are we causing the dog to hold in negative energy? Are we causing the dog to kind of bottle up this thing that it needs to get out in some way, right? Right now it's getting it out in a way that's actually harming people or harming himself or causing him to do something that's getting him into trouble. But if we could understand that and now and bring it out in another way, and yet create positive behavior because we did not go to the pinch collar, because that's one of the things that happens. It causes dogs to hold in this thing that it's doing, biting, barking, growling, snarling, pulling, lunging, right? It's stopping the dog from doing that, but now the dog's holding in all this negative information and negative energy, and it's actually causing more stress. It's causing the dog to be more unhappy. It's causing the dog to be more fearful because it can't express itself in a way that's healthy, and so we don't want to do that. So in this, I just want to show you a little bit about how this kind of works. It's not a complete training session on how we do it, but I'm just going to give you a demonstration on a dog on a video that we just took over the weekend with my 10-year-old daughter that kind of illustrates what it is I'm talking about. So I'm going to show you a video here of a dog. Let me go ahead and just do this first. Hold on. Come on. Operate. Operate for me, please. It looks like it's frozen. Hold on. Let me see if I can fix this. I'm going to change it. And I'm going to come back to my camera, and I'm going to go back to the camera and see. Nope. It is now frozen. Oh, how good is this new software? It worked earlier for me. Hold on. I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to load it back up. You're going to watch this in action. All right, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to load the video. And now, how cool is this? Now I'll reach down and pet her. All right, so this one's working. All right, so that first video is me. So this video here, which is not working, is me with the dog and the 10-year-old. All right, let me come back to my camera so I can explain this. That video doesn't want to run. Just gotta love technology, don't you? All right, so the hey Amy Phelps, hey Deanna. Oh, good, you can hear me now. I'm so sorry about that earlier. Okay, so what you would see in that video, if I could get it to operate, is that in the beginning, as the trainer, right? So I'm just putting myself in the position of training this dog for my 10-year-old daughter or my 10-year-old customer. This dog that I'm showing you, this female German Shepherd, is a high-energy dog that nips and bites, right, and causes injury. This, I don't know if you can see it, but I have a cut. Where's the camera? Not able to show you. There's a cut on my hand. I don't know if you can see it. Right there next to my knuckle, right? That dog bit me there, not out of aggression, right? This is one of these dogs that it communicates through its biting, right? And its excitement, it just bites, and it bites hard. As a matter of fact, it bit so hard that it caused me to be, I was bleeding like a stuck pig. Is that the phrase? I was bleeding pretty good. And so that's what this dog does, right? Jumps up, bites, and then and no growling, no aggression, tail wagging. It's happy. It's just biting out of happiness, hard. And it pulls and lunges. And when it comes and greets somebody, it's rude and jumps on them and bites them. So the owner put a pinch collar on the dog, and that's how the dog, anytime it was out of the backyard or out of the house, the pinch collar was on all the time. So, and did it really help? Not that much, because the dog still now found times to bolt out when the handler wasn't watching to be able to relieve that desire to do that, right? So it works as long as the handler is here with both hands on the leash, watching the dog and prepared. But as soon as the handler goes, "Oh, hi, how are you?" the dog then jumps up and does its thing, because now the dog has learned. Like, she's smart enough to know when the handler has both hands on the leash and is in a position to correct, the dog's not going to do anything. The dog goes, "I know she's ready," right? But as soon as she's not ready, the dog then does that thing. So is the pinch collar solving the problem? No. It's temporarily curtailing it from time to time, but it's not helping the dog become better mannered and to become a better dog for its owner, and it's not creating a trust in the relationship. As a matter of fact, some of the messages I've got from the handlers, "I'm about ready to kill this dog," right? Or other things that are very similar to that, because I know this handler owner very well. She uses colorful language, right? And so this dog is a mom, and so is the pinch collar creating a better relationship between the human and the dog? No. It's giving the handler the opportunity to take the dog out, but still it's filled with angst and anxiety, and the same thing with the dog. All right, so what happens when that dog first gets here? Hey, Daria, Ranger, tell Ranger I said hi. Daria, a fantastic dog owner. Her and her husband have Belgian Malinois in their home, and cares for these dogs, fosters dogs. An amazing woman. Not a lot of people have the patience to foster Belgian Malinois, but she does. And I'm sure Amy and Deanna also are great people also. But Daria I know very well, and she's actually decoyed for some of the police dogs that we had in training. So back to that thing, the pinch collar, right? The pinch collar is on the dog is because the handler perceives that if the pinch collar is on, the dog won't do certain things. Yes and no. Yes, the dog knows when she's ready and gives a couple really hard ones, and she's given hard corrections when I've seen her, and it's slowing down, but it's not fixing the problem. It's not fixing the relationship. It's not doing a lot of things. So the dog comes here. I took the dog to begin training for detection work, right? I didn't necessarily have the dog brought to us to do board and train for obedience and control, although that has become part of it because the dog needs it, right? You can't take a detection dog into an environment where there's probably kids or people around and not have control and obedience, right? You can't do that, even though there are detection dog trainers and handlers that say, no, I don't teach any obedience to my dogs because it hurts their detection work. BS. It does not. All right. So this dog comes here. So the first thing we do, Aldo and I both agree, is that we take pinch collars off. We don't operate dogs on pinch collars because for us, being in the business for a really long time, that is not our go-to tool. And we don't believe it's necessary to have an e-collar or a pinch collar on the dog when we're training the basics of anything for the dogs, including obedience. So flat collar on this dog. This dog knows the pinch collar because the owner has had it on all the time when the dog's out for walks, or often. I don't know about all the time, but often. And so the dog gets here. For the first couple of days, we don't do anything with the dog except for feed the dog and go out there and make the dog sit before it eats and stay. And the dog understands that it can't bolt through gates, whether it's the kennel or the door or anything like that. So we begin to lay some ground rules for at least living in the backyard and for eating. All right. So then it comes to training. I put the dog on the flat collar, put the leash on the flat collar, bring the dog out, and begin to teach the dog that there's some rules and boundaries, and I'll love you as long as you are fit into those rules and boundaries. But anytime that you don't, I'm going to use a stern voice and a correction on the collar that gets your attention. That doesn't mean I'm going to flip the dog over. It doesn't mean I'm going to pull the dog off its legs. It's just in combination with a good, firm voice that means authority, along with a leash correction. Then you'll understand black and white. When you're bad, you get that. When you're good, you get praise. All right. So in this first video that I cannot get to play, I'm going to try one more time. It's so crazy. I have no idea why this won't play, because it played earlier when I had no sound. All right. I hold onto the leash. When the dog goes to look at my 10-year-old daughter like she's going to go up and bite her, I give her a firm correction and tell her no. When the dog is in obedience position of sit or down, sometimes it's its choice, and the dog allows my daughter to pet it, I don't do anything. And when the dog is pet, I say, good girl. And then my daughter, says the same thing. And so we make it very clear. When you do bad, this happens. When you do good, this happens. And it doesn't come with a lot of pain and discomfort, which causes more anxiety quite often and harms the relationship between me and the dog. All right. So let me go to the next video. So the next video is where I hand the leash to my daughter, right? And this is all in one morning session. We're talking about maybe 10 minutes in. And remember, this dog bites, this dog jumps, this dog lunges, and does a bunch of stuff. And you hopefully will be able to hear me giving my daughter instructions, if everything goes right, where I'm training both her and the dog at the same time. That is my job as the trainer, to train both the human and the dog at the same time, to teach them not to do something because it's going to cause the dog to act out, and also teach her what to do with the dog so that she understands what the dog needs and helps her with the dog. All right, so let me push play. Good. So there she's petting the dog, and you see the dog licking its lips. I'm going to stop that for just a minute. Did you see the dog lick its lips there when she was petting? The dog is processing, right? That licking of the lips is a little bit nervousness in that the dog is going, God, if I feel like lunging right now and jumping, but I know that with this guy, he doesn't go for that, right? And so the dog's like contemplating, God, I so badly want to taste this child's skin, and I want to jump up and lunge and show her how much I'm interested in her energy and stealing it from her, right? That's what the dog is licking its lips for, right? But recognizing that as a trainer, which many of you probably do, you're saying, yep, I saw that right away, right? And the dog is, she would normally be doing is biting her hand as she reached out to pet, right? It's not that the dog doesn't want to be pet. Right? It's just this dog, for whatever reason, believes that when you're putting your hand down there, that it belongs in her mouth, and that she bites down out of the energy that she has. All right, playing. So now what I like is the dog's mouth is open and she's panting, and then see how responsive she was to something. If it was an itch or whatever, I think it was an excuse to sit up. So now, do you see that right away? So there you go. Now you see what I'm talking about. Now you saw what happened where. So now the dog used this itch on its hip or whatever it was, a fly maybe, as an excuse now to stand up and not be in the obedience position that it knows it's supposed to be in, but now it's taking control, right? The dog has decided, I'm going to try to take control of the situation. I'm going to sit up. I know I'm supposed to be down, but I'm going to sit up. And now when you saw my daughter reach out, did you see now the dog perceiving that it's in charge went out after her hand and tried to bite her hand, right? And tried to snap at her hand. She didn't go as far as she normally does. She did held back a little bit, but she's testing the waters, right? If I didn't say no, if I didn't use a stern voice, and if we didn't do a few things to let her know that that's not what we were looking for, then she would have said, okay, I can now sniff her hand, but now next time now I can bite her hand, right? So the dog is trying to figure out where it is that the line is and what I'm willing to let her get away with. All right. I'm also talking to my daughter, telling her, see now, but now my dog's a little bit flinchy. So now I have to tell my daughter not to be flinchy. I have to tell my daughter to trust me, that I know what I'm doing, that I'm not going to let that dog get her. Right, that I'm close. So I'm telling her to stop backing up, because that backing up is actually feeding into what the dog is kind of looking for. It's looking for a reaction. Do you see that? How she's backing up?
Good. Now go with
But I'm getting involved with my voice.
Good. Nice.
All right. The only negative thing about this is I can't hear the darn video.
But I'm gonna help.
All right. So I'm hoping, based on my memory now, is that I get involved with my voice. You see the dog looking at me like, oh crap, he's getting involved, and now the dog goes back to being that little bit of an obedient dog that we had at the very beginning, right? But it's me working with the handler, telling her to stop moving backwards, because that moving backwards is feeding into that power that the dog wants to have, right? And then kind of nipping at her hand, kind of chasing her hand a little bit. That's all feeding into it too. But I now get involved. Hey, no, stop, sit. And I get that voice. And, as far as the dog knows, I'm going to come in and grab that leash and give her now the physical correction that I think she can have. All right, let's finish this video.
Platz.
Now my daughter goes back to hitting her, and the dog goes back to being obedient. And now I get closer to tell the dog to down, because for whatever reason, the down in this dog's life right now only happens when I'm close. All right. Do you see how all that happened? This was a lot of communication going on between me and the dog. I'm going to bring in another video on this other one here. Let me see if I can. I'm going to get this one out of here again. I'm going to open up my app and see. Gosh darn. There's a very important video here that for some reason I can't get. All right, let's go ahead. I'm going to come back to my camera just for a second. I'm going to try to see if I can fix this, because there's an important part of this that we're missing out.